Hello, my name is Taryn Smith, and this is my final research paper presentation. The topic that I chose to research was reading interventions for secondary students. And this is for READ882, Contemporary Research in Language Arts for the Department of Advanced Education Programs. So looking at background information, 72% of 12th grade students performed at the NAEP basic achievement level in reading. So while this may sound good or positive that 72% of students are at the basic level, they describe basic as a partial mastery of fundamental skills. So while, basic might seem positive, again, it's only a partial mastery of crucial skills that students need to be successful. So basic really is not that good for students to have. So a lot of the reasons that students may be scoring basic is because of a lack of research, specifically targeting the secondary level, a lack of reading intervention programs. There's likely not sufficient time for reading instruction in schools, as well as a lack of adequately trained professionals. So kind of all of these causes lead to that high percentage of students who are just basic in their reading performance. And this can lead to, and does lead to, a disproportionate number of students with reading deficiencies having behavior issues, dropping out of school, being placed in correctional institutions, poverty, all of the things that we don't want our students to see. So with all of that data, it's really important that students leave school being strong readers, or at least proficient. The level of basic, in my opinion, and after completing this research, is just not good enough. So looking at the theoretical framework for the research, basically all of it centered around the social constructivism theory by Vygotsky. So there's three components of social constructivism. We have the fact that cognitive development heavily depends on interventions with others and a culture that supports thinking. So I know Vygotsky was big on students learning through their interactions with other people. And from the research that I read and gathered, they also agreed that especially in the reading intervention classroom, those social interactions are super important, whether it be students' interactions with their peers or their teachers. Those interactions have to be positive in order for students to be successful in those reading intervention classes. So with that said, a lot of the research pointed towards text-based collaborative learning, so that students can read texts and share the text with each other. They also just encouraged strong relationships, like I said, among peers and teachers. One research article in particular addressed reading intervention classes through the perspective of students, and that research was conducted through interviews. And a lot of students said that relationships and just the overall attitude towards the reading intervention class made a huge difference. If they felt like the relationships weren't positive, then they tended to not benefit from those classes at all. With that said as well, Vygotsky created the zone of proximal development, which means that material presented to students shouldn't be too easy, but it also shouldn't be too hard. And with that said, all of the research pointed towards explicit teaching, modeling, providing students with challenging material, but also teaching them and helping them to work through it was proven effective. Another and the last component of social constructivism is scaffolding, and a lot of the research recommended scaffolding material in the reading intervention classroom. Some examples and ways that teachers can scaffold is through providing clues to students, providing reminders on how to do something, providing examples, and another type of scaffolding that I didn't really know before this project was considered scaffolding is just encouragement. So letting students know that they're on the right track, that they are working correctly towards solving the problem. So really, I felt that Vygotsky's theory of social constructivism aligned perfectly with all of the research that I found regarding reading interventions and reading intervention classes at the secondary level. So discussing the research and the implementation, the classroom implementation of the research, there were some major things that I found all of the research had in common. And so I kind of combined them into this is what it found, and this is how it should be implemented in the classroom. The first factor is relevance. All of the research said that in order for reading intervention classes to be effective, all of the material presented, all of the strategies taught must be relevant to students. So in terms of text, it should be able to relate to what they're learning right now in some of their classes, relate to their lives, anything like that, any type of relevant text, and also strategies, choosing strategies that they can use in that specific class and also use in other classes that they're in has proven to be effective. Another factor is addressing each student's area of need. As obvious as it may sound, a lot of the research said that teachers are not addressing the skills that students need and that they don't have. So in reading intervention classes, specifically, teachers should be teaching, teaching each student what they need to know, what they're kind of struggling with. And that has also proven effective in strengthening their reading skills. And it can be hard, obviously, in bigger classes. That's where differentiation comes in, and just making sure that you are, in fact, meeting each student's need in the area of reading, because there's a lot of different areas that students can struggle with. Next, we have explicit teaching and guided practice. I'm going to kind of combine those. Kind of like I mentioned before, these students are in reading intervention classes because they have a deficit in some area. And through explicit teaching and guided practice, all of the research said that this is the best way to approach teaching in a reading intervention classroom, because they obviously don't know how to do those skills. So it's important to walk them through and show them how, especially since, reading isn't really like math. There is no right or wrong necessarily answer, but it's more of a process. So that explicit teaching and guided practice can help show them what the correct process is. Next, we have emphasizing fluency and comprehension. A lot of the research says these are the two main components of reading success, is fluency, and then you have comprehension. So addressing fluency and addressing comprehension together in the reading intervention class can help them kind of become well-rounded readers. And lastly, we have the perfect amount of intensity and duration. So this can be really tricky in schools because there's state testing, there's fire drills, there's pep rallies. All of this stuff can come up and can cut into reading intervention classes time, which is really important. So all of the research has said there needs to be a good balance of intensity and duration. Students need to have that time scheduled. It needs to be kind of sacred time that's not interrupted. And so obviously that's not just up to the teacher. That has to be a school-wide initiative in order to happen. So obviously you don't want students in the reading intervention class all day, every day, but there does need to be that set time. So in talking about classroom implications, some of the benefits, obviously reading skills would improve, teachers would be better equipped to help struggling readers, and overall student success would increase through correctly implemented reading intervention classes. Some drawbacks are extensive training for reading intervention teachers that can lead to time and cost constraints, pushback from teachers and students, teachers who feel like reading isn't important in their subject area, and also students in feeling like they shouldn't be placed in those reading intervention classes. And then overall, just a lack of research regarding secondary grades and what reading interventions have proven to be effective for them. So all of those things kind of affect the classroom implications. So overall, in the future, I hope that there will be more research regarding reading interventions at the secondary level, but for right now, this is all that I've found through the research. Thank you.